You can also see the program at www.whav.tv. Only local radio can bring you this talk opportunity, but only WHAV does.
Catch the wave!
On the next Making Contact.
We're living in a new world where privacy and data mean different things. And in some respects, both our laws and our customs and attitudes haven't quite caught up with that yet.
Nowadays, it seems like everyone wants to get hold of our personal information, from the NSA to the welfare department.
Being on welfare is one of the most miserable things in the world because you're under the scrutiny of the welfare department, and it's like you're constantly on camera. Constantly on camera.
On this edition, we'll hear about the ways we're being tracked and monitored, and ask, are we living in a state of surveillance?
Making Contact is heard every Wednesday night at 6:30. Remember, only local radio can bring you such compelling features, but only WHAV does.
Wave weather!
I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre with Wave Weather. We'll head through tonight with increasing clouds, especially late tonight. Maybe a couple of showers by daybreak, a low of 48. Quick moving cold front to bring us a few light showers in the morning. By the afternoon, clouds should break for at least a little bit of sun with a high of 67. It'll be clear and cool Tuesday night, low of 46. Sunshine for Wednesday with a high of 68. Sunshine for Thursday and 66. More sunshine Friday and 63. May turn a little warmer next weekend. I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre. Your next Wave Weather in 30 minutes.
Some gold favorites, the most music. WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin B. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the venerable Open Mic Show, a 50-year staple of democracy in the Merrimack Valley. I'm Tim Coco. Nathan E. Webster III is in master control. Actually, technically, he's adjusting the camera for those of you watching on WHAV.tv, or I don't think you can watch us yet on Haverhill Community Television, but that may be working shortly. In any event, those of you who are experiencing some difficulty with the WHAV.net website, we're aware of the problem. We're ready to blame the company that hosts it. In fact, we will blame them, but I'm not sure I'm in the naming names situation yet. But tonight on the Open Mic Show, some of these technological problems spurred me to want to know if you are so frustrated by the little things in life. We have a few slides here to help illustrate this, but in any event, I'm not sure anyone can see them is the problem. But if you're frustrated about the new washer that you bought that doesn't quite work, the new refrigerator that came and maybe didn't fit in the same space even though the store told you it would, about the bad reception on one of your cable TV channels and nobody will listen, about the new TV set you bought that you cannot seem to program. What little things are bothering you? What drives you from happy to frustrated? That's what we'll talk about somewhat tonight on the Open Mic Show. Open lines. Let's hear what frustrates you. Is it a pothole in the road? Is it a noisy neighbor? What frustrates you? Call 978-374-1900. Get it off your chest on the Open Mic Show. 978-374-1900. During this broadcast, there may be a special guest. I'm not sure you'll actually see or hear him, though. Dan Kennedy of Media Nation You see him on Channel 2 Friday nights on Beat the Press. He's also an associate professor at Northeastern University. He's coming by to do a spot. I don't know any details, a spot on local media, and he's going to be recording for television himself. Maybe he'll share some details, maybe not. Maybe he'll be our guest, more likely will be his. So if you hear some rustling in the background, it may well be Dan Kennedy. All right. You can listen to WHAV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at WHAV.net on your computer or smartphone. You can also hear it on the bulletin boards behind many cable television stations, including Andover Channel 8, Haverhill Channel 22, Methuen Channels 8 and 22 on Comcast, Channel 32 on Verizon Fios, and in southern New Hampshire, Plasto Channel 17 and 23, Sandown Channel 17. And of course, always can listen on AM radio 1640, FM radio 98.1 coming soon, and we'll have some more discussion about the road to FM. Those of you who are on WHAV's emailing list received a copy of the Wavelengths newsletter yesterday, or the day before, it might have been, and it talks about the historic but rocky road for FM in Haverhill. We'll talk a little more about that as well. You can watch this program normally at WHAV.tv, again on your computer or smartphone, or at Haverhill Community Television, HC Media Channel 22. We did give Channel 22 an alternate way to put the picture on the stream, on the TV, in case they were having a problem with the website. Perhaps they're on the phone now. Nate is on the phone now. Maybe that's what's happening. If you have calls, questions, gripes, want to enter a contest, call me, 978-374-1900. I can also take your email, but for prizes, you cannot win by email. You can only win by calling. But you can send me notes at tcoco, TCOCO, at WHAV.net. If the website recovers well enough, you can also use the message board below the TV screen at WHAV.tv. All right, let's see. David Gowswood had a comment by web, but we'll see. It's not one that I can repeat right now. But if David Gowswood is listening, and maybe he doesn't want me to repeat this either, but I noticed on his Facebook page he had what is might be called a fender bender. It seems like it went all the way across the front of the hood. Thank goodness no one was injured. Maybe he won't appreciate that. But then again, he always comments on my ties, which he likens to a car wreck, I think. So we can do that. All right. Those of you who cannot watch us, you won't know this, but I am wearing the kind of outfit that will probably make you dizzy. Kind of this checkered coat, striped shirt, and a neon tie for David Gowswood's benefit, but I'm not sure that's going to work either. All right, last week I promised that we were going to end one of the contests because it just has not worked out. We had a trivia question out there for quite some time that David Gowswood, WHAV Open Mic Show historian, put out there. Rob Zombie, famous Haverhillite, told Rolling Stone in an interview that he was pretty bored in Haverhill growing up here. There wasn't much to do. Downtown was being demolished, but he ended up playing football in an unusual location. We were asking listeners to tell us, take a guess even, at what might that unusual location be. We're going to reveal that now, since no one wants the prizes, maybe. But Rob Zombie played football in Elmwood Cemetery in Bradford. Rob Zombie played football in Elmwood Cemetery. But we do have other prizes still. course, the big prize everyone always looks for is to get a free birthday cake or a free anniversary cake. And, of course, we can thank LBD's second-generation Italian bakery at 140 South Main Street on the Bradford side of the river for generously providing this prize. Now, we're taking October birthdays and anniversaries, and we will award the recipient the last Monday of this month on the Open Mic Show.
Please qualify?
What's that? Employees do not qualify. But are you having a birthday, Nate?
Anniversary.
Nate's having an anniversary. As soon as he answers the phone, we'll ask him about that. All right. But in any event, the winners will receive a 7-inch chocolate or vanilla cake from LBD's second-generation Italian bakery. Nominate yourself. Nominate your friends. Nominate that annoying neighbor down the street as long as he invites you over for a piece of cake. So October birthdays and anniversaries this evening. I think someone was trying to call, but Nate was tied up on the telephone. Maybe he could time shift those things once in a while, but we'll see. All right, so we have cakes. That's 1. 2, for the first caller who requests it, and I believe we had one last week, first caller who requests free pass to the John Greenleaf Whittier Birthplace Museum, 305 Whittier Road in Haverhill. That's right off Route 110 near 495 going toward Merrimack. Free admission. It's a 326-year-old farmhouse, 70 acres of land, scenic vistas. Probably this is one of the most colorful times of year to go. Leaves aren't quite there yet, but get the ticket now, get the free pass now, and you can visit John Greenleaf Whittier Birthplace, learn a little bit about old houses, learn a little bit about the poet himself. All right. We also have one more prize. I consider it one of our grand prizes, thanks to our friends at Kimball Tavern Antiques, corner of Salem and South Main Streets in Bradford. The question is, name the oldest bowling league in Haverhill. Or if it's a question, what is the oldest bowling league in Haverhill? A league is a group of players who bowl under a certain name. And if you can name that, you'll win a $10 gift certificate to Kimball Tavern Antiques. Now, last week, Kimball Tavern Antiques said that we could give out a hint. A hint. So here's the hint. The name of the bowling league has something to do with cooking. So name the oldest bowling league in Haverhill. It has something to do with cooking, and you could win a $10 gift certificate to Kimball Tavern Antiques. I know we have a caller waiting, but we're also at break time, so I'm going to ask the caller to wait just 1 second. We're going to take a brief break. This hour we'll be hearing about this day in Massachusetts history. We'll be back with more of the Open Mic Show right after that.
Open mic!
Try listening to WHAV in your car or anywhere on your mobile phone. For fast access, visit WHAV.net.
Catch the wave!
The most trusted man in America, news anchor Walter Cronkite, once said, "It is absolutely essential in a democracy to have competition in the media, a lot of competition." That sentiment is one of the driving forces behind WHAV's expanded local news effort. This is News Director Dana Esmail inviting you to listen to my hourly weekday newscast right here on WHAV. You'll also find the area's most comprehensive local news reporting at WHAV.net on your computer or smartphone. Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source, and it's always free.
And that's the way it is.
Expect more at Northern Essex. With campuses in Haverhill and Lawrence, Northern Essex Community College is the only state college located in the lower Merrimack Valley region of Massachusetts. Northern Essex offers over 70 associate degree and certificate programs in the areas of health, business, computers and technology, criminal justice, liberal arts, and more. NECC also provides hundreds of non-credit courses designed for career growth and personal enrichment. For more information, visit necc.mass.edu.
Today is September 15th. On this day in 1882, Mabel Loomis Todd first recorded her impressions of her mysterious Amherst neighbor. Emily Dickinson always wore white and had her hair arranged as was the fashion 15 years ago. She writes the strangest poems and very remarkable ones, Mrs. Todd noted in her journal, adding, she is in many respects a genius. Few scholars would disagree. Emily Dickinson was a genius, and her poems were remarkable indeed. Although she lived the majority of her adult life in seclusion, she wrote some of the most potent poems in the English language. When she died in 1886, her sister asked Mabel Todd to copy and edit the poems. In 1890, the first volume was published. Only then did the world discover Emily Dickinson. For more about this and other Mass Moments, go online to massmoments.org. Brought to you by the Massachusetts Foundation for the Humanities.
Catch the wave. WHAV. Open mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
Welcome back to the Open Mic Show, a 50-year staple of democracy in the Merrimack Valley. I'm Tim Coco, your host. Nathan E. Webster III is in master control. Open Mic Show historian David Goudswood is on the line, but we're going to ask him to hold 1 second while we just repeat one of the themes of the evening. What drives you nuts? What makes you go from this, if we're watching on television, to this? All right, I had one of those weeks, and I'm sure many of you have had them as well. I'll give one example, but I'm going to probably give at least one every hour or one every 15 minutes. I bought for the office. I was probably the last one in the world to break down and do it because I kind of think they're a waste. Bought one of those Keurig coffee makers for the office. And I had a representative from the store at my office pushing me into signing up online to get some kind of a deal, and I was under pressure, maybe, whatever, but I decided that was worth the whatever percent off it was going to be, so I ordered it. It arrived today, and it doesn't accept the standard size of coffee containers that you can buy in the stores. Except this is the Keurig View model. My view is that the View is crap. You can't buy the coffee for it. So I've after emptying out the water and all, of discovering, and by the way, buying 6 cases of coffee in the container that doesn't fit, I decided the coffee maker would go and not the coffee. But we'll see. So what frustrates you, David Goudswood?
Well, I got to tell you, what really frustrates me is when radio people mix their metaphors.
Which ones did I mix?
Well, for instance, if I would never call your tie a car wreck.
Oh, okay.
It would be a train wreck.
Well, I was trying to work in your unfortunate situation.
It was a simple little situation where there was a red light and 2 people both thought they had the right of way, including the one who had a red light.
Oh. You don't have to reveal who had the red light.
Well, it doesn't matter when my front end is lying on the road now, does it?
No. But you posted it somewhat tongue in cheek. The fact that you posted it, I thought that you didn't mind it too much.
No. It was actually fortuitous in one way that I hit a half-ton pickup truck. So basically, all it did was pull my front grill work off. Nothing serious. It looks a lot worse than it is.
All right. Yeah, I did see that hanging halfway or mostly on the ground.
Yes.
And I think you wrote on Facebook, and again, I hope you don't mind my doing this, you wrote that you probably could have driven it, but you were somewhat concerned about a coolant leak. Whether it was from the reservoir or from the system, you decided not to take the chance. Is that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, if I could have snapped the broken, a little bit of attachment that was left for the front end off the and thrown it in the back, but I would, if the radiator's leaking, you really don't want to be running the car.
No, a good point. So very good then. So my tie is a train wreck, not a car wreck.
Yes, please keep your metaphors straight.
All right. Well, actually, I do have a history of mixing my metaphors and screwing up some cliches. I used to say often that I didn't keep all my marbles in one basket.
I think that's a regional thing, though.
Really? Why?
I really do. I mean, often.
New Englanders or what?
I think so. I taught a class down here on how to write fiction realistically by not getting your facts mixed up. And the example I use is somebody who takes the rotary to the packy. That is not something you're going to talk about somebody who's a Texan.
Take the rotary to a packy.
Yes.
I bet everyone on listening knows exactly what you mean if they are in the Merrimack Valley.
Correct. If you're in Florida, you don't. You take the roundabout to the liquor store.
All right.
Or down here anywhere. I mean, drugstore even.
Oh, you can buy liquor in a drugstore?
Mm-hmm. Supermarket. In fact, the supermarket chain down here, Publix, which is the equivalent of Market Basket in terms of the pricing and the family orientation of management, they actually tend to go now and buy up their plazas and take out a low-performing storefront and put in their own liquor store.
Oh, really?
So they're doing it the opposite way, whereas Market Basket tends to buy it and then build it. Down here, they buy it after they already decided they're going to keep it.
Well, what do you know about that? Well, in any event, I think you may have noticed the WHAV's wavelength went out with a focus on, I'm going to reveal to the listeners what David Goudswood knows to be true. David has taken the lead in writing a book about the history of WHAV, and he's been anxiously awaiting Chapter 3 for a couple of years at least, and
not quite that bad, but okay, keep going.
So I
want
finally
witnesses, so keep talking.
But as I lead the wavelength story with this paragraph, with the Federal Communications Commission's tentative selection of WHAV to receive a new FM license at 98.1 megahertz, the Haverhill Heritage Series reviews the difficult path FM has had to circumnavigate in Haverhill. And so
the truth.
And so it just timed out that I needed an article for wavelengths, that the FCC had granted, at least tentatively, a new radio license to WHAV, and David Goudswood wanted Chapter 3. So between Part 1 that ran yesterday and Part 2 that'll run next month, I pretty much nailed Chapter 3. Of course, we have to see what David thinks of that.
Well, I'm all for anything that makes me not have to write an article for wavelengths.
Okay, and that's right. David Goudswood.
I'm having too much fun with the stuff I'm working on right now. So.
Yeah, David Goudswood also frequently writes for wavelengths. And the one that really stands out for me, but for others, there may be other topics, but Hannah Dustin and the Mostly Mysterious Missing Monument. I think that's...
I love that one.
David wrote the headline, too, which was wonderful, so we let that run. And then, of course, he also wrote about the man who weighed souls.
Speaking of which...
And these aren't the soles in Haverhill that people expect, like on the bottoms of your shoes.
Or the god-awful stuff they stick on corners everywhere.
We won't go there right now, David.
Good.
But that is in the news as well. Team Haverhill has announced 7 locations for its latest shoe sculptures. This time, the shoe sculptures actually have some function. They have a seat built in, so you can sit in a shoe. Hey, who can sing the Buster Brown song? David Godse, want to give it a try?
The retromercial. I don't do retromercials.
Buster Brown. Nate, do you know it? Oh, come on. Am I that old?
Yes.
Buster Brown lived in a shoe. There goes his dog, Ty. He lives in there, too. Oh, come on, listeners.
I believe the dog's name was Tag, but
Tag.
okay.
Well, whatever. When you get old, not only do you mix metaphors and use old cliches, you also get most of it wrong. So...
Speaking of your buddy, Dr. Duncan McDougall, the doctor who weighed souls, there may be some activity on getting a little television for the good doctor.
Yes, actually, listeners, David Goudswood has more connections than you can imagine with television producers, publishers, and all kinds of things. And David, why don't you share with our listeners what you've managed to come up with?
Well, I haven't filmed it yet, so it's hard to say. I won't know till it gets there. But it'll be a episode of the Travel Channel TV series called Mysteries at the Museum. And it'll run next season, and it will feature a scale similar to the one that would have been used by Dr. McDougall at the TB clinic in Dorchester. And that will be the tag that brings you into the story of the good doctor.
Okay, the scale that was, or at least one like it, the one that weighed souls.
Yeah,
Dr.
they could
Duncan
not find one
McDougall.
in Boston. They could not find one at the museum in Vermont, which is where the scale factory was located. But they finally did locate one in Seattle.
Oh, okay.
So they're going to film. They're sending a film crew out to Seattle. They'll shoot a few scenes of the scale, and then they'll drop them into a reenactment of the actual actions of the doctors in the experiments.
Now, the irony of all of this, listeners and viewers, is that in order to do a story about Haverhill, the film crew had to go everywhere but Haverhill.
Yes, I'll be doing the narration, the quote unquote expert that they talk to. So I'll be filming in Florida. The scale itself is in Seattle, and the rest of the production will take place in New York.
What do you think of that, folks? All right, David, what else? Talk to our theme of the evening. What frustrates you, and keep it clean?
Which do you want me to do?
It may be talk show host.
Well, the biggest problem down here, is simply the traffic. And the problem is that these roads were designed for the traffic levels they had 30 years ago. So every single road, you have to understand Florida roads are on a grid. North, south, east, west. There's no in-betweens.
All right, well, that sounds like good planning.
All navigation is literally done. Go east 3 miles and then turn west. That sort of navigation. But roads that are 2 lanes of travel in each direction need to be 3 or 4. And their response to this is to, instead of widening the road, to allow another 80-house unit of development to get on the road and then wonder why the water pressure can't handle it, or the electrical grid is failing, or why there's gridlock on the road.
That sounds like a problem that other communities have at times. But
yeah, and and the other part of the problem, aside from the fact that the roads are busy normally, is we get 30,000 extra people into town every year come Thanksgiving for snowbird season.
Oh, yes, that's right. All the snowbirds, and we all know quite a few of them up here in the north who...
but they all drive like they're still wherever they are. So Massachusetts drivers drive like they're in Massachusetts. but they're on the road with people who are driving like they're still in Wisconsin.
I see. Hey, let me ask you this, because we have to go to news, but the building bust that had occurred in Florida a few years back, is that over with, or are we back to just building again, since you mentioned...
It's regionally coming back. The real problem isn't the building bust. It's that they've run out of places to build. It's like a giant wave of development that started in Miami and it's headed north. Boca, Broward County, Fort Lauderdale, and then into Palm Beach County. It's past Palm Beach County now, and it's getting into St. Lucie County. And St. Lucie County doesn't have the infrastructure for any sort of development.
Oh, I see. So it's heading north, but north is less developed.
Right, and because you can't go east-west. I mean, you can only go east to the ocean, and then you can only go west to the Everglades. So it's a squeeze play. It has to go north or south. And south is already developed, or it's the ocean again.
That's true. That's true. Drive real fast through the Keys, and you might find yourself in Cuba.
Well, that's a heck of a jump you took at Key West.
Yeah, I know. All right. So, anyway, David, we hope you'll stay tuned and maybe, depending on the evening, have additional comments, and we'll take it from there.
If you need me to call, again, you know how to whine plaintively on the air. You've done it often enough.
All right. Well, actually, folks, though, I was actually, of course, now I'm late for news. See, I had to keep my record intact. But one of the, David Goudswood writes great articles for Wavelengths, WHAV's newsletter, because he's a great author. David, plug your latest book. It's about the most payment I can give you.
What is my latest? Oh, well, that one. I have to stop and think sometimes. Once you break 10, it sort of starts to blur together. The latest book is called The Massachusetts Guide to Horror, and it is a atlas-style book of small entries for real and fictional locations in the Bay State where a horror movie was filmed or a book is set or a person who worked in the industry is buried, or just a place that inspired horror writers. So you have fictional places such as the town Riverside where the reincarnation of Peter Pride took place, at the same time as you have Springfield, Massachusetts, which is where the actual filming locations were. As one example, Hannah Dustin is in there, of course, because, America's second most favorite axe murderess. But she's also in there because she is used by John Bellairs as a landmark in his young adult Gothic stories that are set in Dustin Green.
All right, so Horror Guide to Massachusetts?
Yes.
With quite a bit on Haverhill, as we might expect from Haverhill native David Goudswood. And this is available where?
It's available... I don't think it's in any local bookstores, only because I would have heard about it by my co-author brother at this point.
Oh, your brother's a co-author.
You can order it at the Barnes & Noble up on 28, or you can get it through Amazon.
Amazon online. That's right. We should give your brother some credit for this.
I don't.
Your brother Scott.
Yes, we should.
Your brother Scott. All right. Well, listen, we're going to go to news. I may call on you again, because you never know when these obscure topics come up. I think last week, one that you obviously were ready for, but couldn't possibly have seen it coming, which was Brian's question about what style house he had on School Street.
Like I said, that's a tough one to call when it's already sitting on its side, but yeah, I think it was a Queen Anne cottage.
That's right. Okay, folks, thank you very much, David. We look forward to talking with you a little later. Also, I'll tell you, and I'll tease the audience at the same time, a local, or at least a former Haverhillite, not David, but another one, and we'll tell you about him after the news, has provided some photographs from the 1950 Haverhill High School yearbook that features, what do you know, WHAV. So David was also looking for some artwork for this book. So we'll have a couple of photographs on as we reminisce a little bit during the historical segment of the Open Mic Show. All right, David, thank you very much once again.
As always, my pleasure. Talk to you later, Tim.
Take care. All right, we're going to go to news late as always. You'll hear national news from FSN, local news from WHAV's own news director, Dana Esmel. You'll hear local weather based right here in the Merrimack Valley. And you'll hear, as a bonus, Nathan Webster's NASCAR race recap. And you know, it all goes by quick, so we'll see you very soon on the Open Mic Show.
Open mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
It's 7:06.
WHAV Merrimack Valley. WHAV is a not-for-profit service of Public Media of New England Incorporated. It's heard on 1640 AM, the web, at whav.net, and participating cable television stations.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Rebecca Foster. International diplomats in Paris have pledged their full support to eradicate the threat of Islamic State militants in Iraq and Syria. A joint statement by a group of 30 countries says that could include military assistance. Foreign leaders promised to fight ISIS using all means necessary. Meanwhile, the Obama administration is putting pressure on Congress to approve funding to train and arm Syrian rebels. White House spokesman Josh Earnest said the U.S. wants to get the rebels ready to take on ISIS.
The goal here is to ensure that we have, or that there is, a fighting force on the ground in Syria that can take the fight to ISIL in Syria. The president has ruled out the use of American combat troops for that purpose.
Around 500 migrants are believed to have drowned after a boating accident near Malta last week. The news is emerging now as 2 Palestinian survivors spoke about what they're describing as an intentional crash by other traffickers patrolling the seas. Our Europe correspondent Sandra Gatman reports.
Speaking to the International Organization for Migration, 2 survivors say their boat, which departed Egypt last week, was sunk by a vessel belonging to other traffickers. The Palestinians say a confrontation occurred when their fellow passengers refused to board a less safe boat. They were 2 of 9 survivors aboard the vessel carrying 500 Sudanese, Egyptian, Syrian, and Palestinian migrants seeking asylum in Europe. The news comes as another boat carrying 250 people sank off the Libyan coast on Monday and adds to a total of more than 2,500 migrants who've lost their lives at sea so far this year. Sandra Gatman, Brussels.
The UK Prime Minister David Cameron is in Scotland as the final 72 hours of campaigning get underway ahead of the independence referendum on Thursday. Scotland's First Minister Alex Salmond has again criticized the scaremongering of the No campaign, while David Cameron delivers what he calls head and heart reasons to reject independence. Our correspondent Dan Whitehead is in the Scottish capital, Edinburgh.
No one expected the race to be this close, and both the Yes campaign and Better Together are throwing everything at these final 3 days of campaigning. Alex Salmond met with business leaders at Edinburgh Airport, describing the independence referendum as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Scotland to create an economic and jobs policy for Scotland's needs. But David Cameron is also in Scotland to put forward his arguments against independence, saying there would be no way back if Scots vote to leave. Both sides will be working 24/7 to secure votes from the many still undecided. Dan Whitehead, Edinburgh.
For the rest of the day's stories, you can follow us on Twitter at Feature Story. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Here's what's happening in local news. Team Haverhill will conduct shoe sculpture installations Thursday in preparation for its upcoming Shoe Liberation exhibition event. Shoes crafted by local artists that double as benches will be installed at 7 Haverhill locations, including Pentucket Bank Stadium Branch, South Main Street at Greenleaf Street, Northern Essex Community College Haverhill Campus, Riverwalk, Community Actions Fox Center, and Bradford Square. Details on the theme of each shoe sculpture can be found at www.whav.net. Tour maps are available at Positive Images Gallery, the City Hall exhibit, Buttonwoods Museum, and Haverhill Farmers Market. The Haverhill City Council is expected to receive a draft ordinance banning the sale of bath salts, otherwise known as synthetic marijuana, at its regular meeting on Tuesday. As with all proposed law changes, the council is expected to place the ordinance from Mayor James J. Fiorentini on file for 2 weeks. The mayor said he proposed the ordinance after learning of overdose deaths in other cities. The proposed law prohibits people or businesses from selling synthetic cannabinoids, often labeled as herbal incense, potpourri, bath salts, jewelry cleaner, fake pot, or smokable incense. The draft ordinance requires a written warning but no other penalties for the first offense, and a fine of $300 or other criminal action for any subsequent offenses. Haverhill police will be charged with enforcement. A Haverhill woman is due to be arraigned in court on drunk driving charges following her arrest on Sunday. Haverhill police report 47-year-old Michelle M. Tavano of Haverhill was arrested during a traffic stop shortly before 5 p.m. Sunday at 931 Boston Road. She is charged with operating a motor vehicle under the influence of liquor, open container violation, and a marked lanes violation. In sports, WHAV's Nate Webster has this week's NASCAR race recap.
The first chase race at Chicagoland did not disappoint fans looking for a lot of late race action. Kyle Larson was your biggest mover of the race, coming in third. Larson says it was a blast racing with Harvick and Jeff Gordon, who gave the rookie a pep talk after the race.
You had a blast the whole race, and was able to chase Kevin down, and then I knew he'd take my line away once I got to him, and he did, and couldn't really figure out how to get by, and had the pit stops and came out in the lead and was just going to cruise, I thought, to the win. And the last restart, me and Jeff had quite a battle. And it stinks we got third, but coming up close as often as I have this year, it's going to make that first win feel that much more special.
The 47 of A.J. Allmendinger suffered the same fate as Jimmy Johnson last week when his gear shift lever broke, making it hard for him to drive the car in and out of the turns. Several teams had troubles on pit road. Kyle Busch overshoots his pit box. Justin Allgaier and Matt Kenseth spin out entering the pits. Casey King gets nabbed twice for speeding. So does the 55 of Brian Vickers. Next week, I'll be at New Hampshire Motor Speedway tweeting live from the track. Just follow me at Nate WHAV to see all the updates. Nate Webster, WHAV Sports.
Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source, and it's always free. In the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, this is Dana Esmel.
Wave weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre with Wave Weather. We'll head through tonight with increasing clouds, especially late tonight. Maybe a couple of showers by daybreak, a low of 48. Quick moving cold front to bring us a few light showers in the morning. By the afternoon, clouds should break for at least a little bit of sun with a high of 67. It'll be clear and cool Tuesday night, low of 46. Sunshine for Wednesday with a high of 68. Sunshine for Thursday and 66. More sunshine Friday and 63. May turn a little warmer next weekend. I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre. Your next Wave Weather in 30 minutes.
Stay informed each day with local news, coupled with Pacifica's worldwide coverage. Only local radio can bring you local news, but only WHAV does.
Open mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
Welcome back to the Open Mic Show, a 50-year staple of democracy in the Merrimack Valley. We'll start promoting them a little bit early. This hour of the Open Mic Show being brought to you by the Merrimack Valley Economic Development Council. Smart companies choose the Merrimack Valley. And you know, it's one of the most comprehensive listings of local events can be found in Merrimack Valley Happenings. It's an online listing that you can actually have sent to your email box each week. All you have to do is go to merrimackvalley.info, Merrimack Valley, all one word, .info. Click on Merrimack Valley Happenings, and then you can even sign up for it. So you might want to take a look at that. And, of course, why does an economic development site explain what's happening? Because companies looking, smart companies that is, looking to locate their businesses, their factories, their whatevers in the Merrimack Valley, know that quality of life is very important. And we do have a great quality of life in the Merrimack Valley, and you might want to check out those listings and see what you're missing. In addition, let's remind everyone about the great prizes that you can receive. We'll do this in reverse order of last time. What is the name of the oldest bowling league in Haverhill? What is the name of the oldest bowling league in Haverhill? If you can answer that question, you'll receive a $10 gift certificate to Kimball Tavern Antiques, corner of Salem and South Main Streets in Haverhill, at least the Bradford side of Haverhill. You know, here it is more than 100 years after Haverhill so-called annexed Bradford. We still don't quite know how to describe that area of the city. But in any event, name the oldest bowling league in Haverhill, and you can receive a $10 gift certificate to Kimball Tavern Antiques. Last week, Kimball Tavern Antiques authorized a clue. The name of the bowling league has something to do with cooking. So why don't you take a look, take a guess. You could win $10 gift certificate, same as cash. If the item costs $10 or less, it's yours for free. Costs $10 or more, well, you get a big discount. So there you go. Also, for the first person who requests it, free pass to the John Greenleaf Whittier Birthplace Museum, 305 Whittier Road. If you haven't been there, and you might say, well, what is that? I've never heard of it. I'm not going to go there. Well, you want to go there. It's a piece of history in Haverhill. It is the birthplace of the poet and abolitionist John Greenleaf Whittier. You know, most people talk about Whittier's poetry, but he was much more than a poet. He was a statesman. He was a state representative from Haverhill, probably about the seat Brian Dempsey holds today. State representative from Haverhill. He also was one of the founders of the Republican Party when it was the Progressive Party. Learn more about John Greenleaf Whittier. Take advantage by just asking for this free ticket to the museum. And then, of course, we're accepting birthdays and anniversaries for October. Name someone, including yourself, for an anniversary or birthday in October. Nate is not eligible, but he's having a wedding anniversary. Well, let's see if that's what his wife agrees when she gets home. But anyway, you can win a free 7-inch cake, chocolate or vanilla, from LBD's Second Generation Italian Bakery, 140 South Main Street in Bradford. So I believe we have a call. You are on the Open Mic Show.
How are you?
Very good. How are you?
You know, that's kind of funny about zombie Elmwood Cemetery.
Oh, so you've been listening. Good for you.
Well, yeah, I've been listening, but I was thinking of the railroad tracks, but I worked in Elmwood when I was a kid. I was 16 years old.
Did you?
Very interesting cemetery.
Is there a place to play football there?
Well, sure. There's some open spaces. There was a lot of open space, and let's see what else is on my mind. Yeah, I'm going to give you another clue on that.
Okay, folks, another clue.
Another clue. Sometimes in the summertime, it really gets, with the weather, it gets really, you know what I mean, warm. It gets.
Okay.
You know, that's another clue. But tonight, I really I want to give a plug to my cousin Bruce Anderson. He passed away. I don't know if you guys heard. He passed away in that plane crash in Northampton. on Labor Day, September 1st, 2014.
I did hear about that. I guess I didn't realize there was a connection.
Well, there's a connection. He's from Haverhill. He grew up in Haverhill.
Bruce Anderson.
Bruce Anderson, right. He actually, I'll tell you, I'll give you a little history about Bruce. He was born November 5th, 1947. He's the son of Fred and Annette Anderson, and his father actually grew up on Lake Street.
Okay, not too far from you?
No, and his parents are buried in Hillside Cemetery, along with his grandparents, Fred Anderson. And his father, Fred, grew up way down on Lake Street, next to the house next to the golf course.
Okay, on the other side of Lake, on the.
That's right.
Okay, across Broadway.
That's right. He grew up there. His mother was a Barlow, and that's where Bruce's mother and father, his father, grew up. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about Bruce. Gerry will be interested in this. It was he lived in Kingston on the lake, and he had a service yesterday. They had it Saturday for the pilot of the plane, his friend, one of his friends, David Ingalls.
Okay.
And they were really big into the town and doing anything they can to support the town and any with the conservation, any land. This is what Gerry would be interested in. This. There's a little thing about his eulogy here. Bruce was active in the Kingston Lake Association, served as a lake host at the town landing, and ran the KLA annual canoe and kayak regatta in August. His trademark zest and wisecracks, as well as his dedication and sense of community spirit. As a member of the Friends of Kingston Open Space, he helped the town acquire lands to protect the watershed, quality and the rural nature of the town. With the Friends of the Church on the plains, he worked to get the steeple roof repaired, gave his time to keeping up the grounds, and advocated for the Pearl of the Plains in the town affairs. An avid musician, singer, and he was a thespian, I guess that's a actor.
Oh, okay.
Bruce sang in many Christmas and spring concerts in that church with the voices of distinction. And yesterday in the church, we had it in the Congregational Church. They opened up his service with two of his band members that were in his band. He played guitar with a lot. It was Bill Coswell and another Haverhill guy, and Brad McKenzie. It's funny that Brad lives up in Madison, New Hampshire, and Bill's great-great-grandfather died in a car accident with Bruce's grandfather.
Really?
1932 in Hampton Beach.
1932.
They got run over by a drunk driver.
Wow, I guess.
So there's a little bit of history.
Well, thank you for sharing. It sounds like he was a very well-rounded gentleman.
Now they opened the ceremony with they opened with a prelude and a welcome, and then they opened up with Terry song. But that was one of the Bruce Springsteen's earliest songs. And they went on from there, and this choir, the Voices of Distinction, with a piano player. There must have been 50 of them in the church. And one of he was in this. He was Voices of Distinction. The first song they played was what is it? He's not heavy.
Oh, he's not heavy. He's my brother.
That's right. They sang that one.
Okay.
He ain't heavy. He's my brother.
I remember that song when it came out.
And then they ended up with the last song they played was "Fire and Rain" by James Taylor. It was unbelievable. It was so moving.
And you attended
this ceremony. And I know he's my dad's cousin, but you know he was 25 years older. My dad was 25 years older than he was, so it was hard for us to relate that. You know, we always called him Cousin Bruce. He was our first cousin removed once. My grandmother and his mother were sisters.
Oh, okay.
And his mother grew up on 19th Ave, the same house as the.
Well, it seems like you're related to everybody.
Well, we're related to a lot of people, and it's just because we had big families.
That's right.
You know,
Well, you
back
also, your family's kind of stayed in the area as well.
That's right. That's right. We stayed here, and you know, and that's another thing. You know, I'm not saying that like the Kimball Tavern. My family took that over. But we've been here, and we love history. Bruce was a true Scotsman.
All
and
right.
I'm sure he's watching that vote over there.
Well, oh, that's right. That's right. And in the United Kingdom, there's a question about whether Scotland will remain after 300 years. Of course, I didn't really think the Scotland joined very willingly originally.
No, I don't think they did.
So
and maybe you know, maybe Braveheart's going to have something to say about it.
Oh, Braveheart! Yeah, actually, maybe we'll be seeing a lot more of that on the television now.
And there was somebody involved with that. Something the Bruce. Do you remember that? They called him something the Bruce.
Something the Bruce.
Does
Nate have that?
Scotland.
Okay.
But anyway, I was going to say on the other thing there. What was they talked about Hannah Dustin, and they said she was the second axe murderer. Who was the first? Who was the original? I mean, after her, who was?
Okay, Hannah Dustin was an axe murderer from Haverhill, yes, and who was the first?
And there was another one from Mass, maybe Rhode Island. I'll just throw that out there.
The first? Well, I think.
Well, that's what Dave's mentioned.
Well, I think Lizzie came later, but no, David.
Well, you know it, Lizzie. Yeah. So I wonder if Dave lived on Lake Street, right?
That's right. He lived up on near Lowell Avenue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I wonder if you guys knew any. There was some on that end. There was some Barlows on that end of the street too.
Well, maybe David Goudswood.
Red Barlow. He was a carpenter.
Maybe David Goudswood, Open Mic Show historian, will let us know what he thinks. But you know, there were some other famous people on Lake Street, at least famous for us. Edwin V. Johnson.
As a matter of fact, Bruce was real good friends with the Johnsons.
Oh, Bruce was friends with the Johnsons?
That's right. He was friends with a lot of people. He was a people magnet. He had a tree service, Sunrise Tree Service. He went to school. He graduated Salem, and he started teaching in Amesbury. Then he just got away from it. It wasn't for him.
Well, how old was he when he passed away?
He was 66.
66.
He would have been 67 November 5th.
Oh, okay.
And he loved coming down. He got this. There wasn't a tree that he wouldn't cut for the Wood family. He did actually work on the tavern, over my brother Craig's, over my house. I mean, I cut a lot of stuff. I cut a lot of trees, but he had the big 70-foot bucket.
Okay. Actually, I never made the connection. So the tree service is associated with your family?
No, that was Bruce's.
Okay.
Sunrise.
All right.
Sunrise Tree Service.
But there is well, maybe it goes with the Tavern family, Kimball Tavern, Kimball Tree Service.
That's Dave Kimball, and he's out of Danville, and he is. I'm sure he's related to the Kimball, and most Kimballs are related to Kimball Tavern, the Kimbals, the original Kimball.
Okay, big family, right?
Yeah, I mean, and Bruce also did a lot of performances in the Firehouse. Yeah, and down in Newburyport, Random Acts, short plays, and then he decided he passed the exam to become a certified arborist.
A certified arborist, okay.
Yeah, to bring a new level, expertise to his longtime tree service. He loved the trees. He loved the woods. He loved animals. He loved people.
Now, is that a double meaning? He loved the woods.
Well, oh yeah. Well, I had to bring that up. I actually got the mic. I got the mic in my hand, and anybody that wanted to say anything, I says it's awful strange that Bruce was my dad's cousin. And my dad was 25 years older than he was, and everybody, they liked that. But I said, he ends up with a whole bunch of cousins with the last name Wood. I said, isn't that kind of ironic?
Very interesting.
His name is Anderson.
All right, very interesting. Well, thank you for sharing.
They come from the Brown family. The Browns, and my father's mother was a Brown, and his mother was a Brown.
Well, thanks for sharing that tribute, and I'm glad you did.
He's done so much for so many people. He just him and I have to get my hat goes off to Dave Ingalls, up there in Kingston. He was a TWA pilot. I don't know if you read his a bit, but he was a TWA pilot that landed a disabled plane in O'Hare Airport with 150 passengers on it. He was the passenger of the Cessna this day it crashed.
Really?
I'm
Okay,
not going to
so-
say I don't know what happened. I can only speculate. The engine was fine, and I don't know if there was something happened to Dave or what. They haven't determined it.
No, that maybe we'll find out some more on that. All right, but let's just remind everyone though that on behalf of Kimball Tavern Antiques, you provided another hint tonight. The trivia question is, what is the name of the oldest bowling league in Haverhill? You gave us a hint last week. It has something to do with cooking. And you gave us a hint this week, maybe I'll just take it a little bit further, that there's a word in the name that relates to how warm it might be.
That's right. And Bruce was a member of our bowling league.
Is this a bowling league you're in?
That's right. It started a long time ago. I'm not going to tell you the name. I'm in it.
There's another clue. There's two people. Woody was in it, and Bruce was in it.
Bruce Anderson was in it.
Bruce Anderson.
Still, and this started quite a while ago down in the old City Lanes.
All right. So it started at the City Lanes, and you can get a $10 gift certificate to Kimball Tavern Antiques, corner of Salem and South Main Streets, if you can name the oldest bowling league in Haverhill.
And, Craig's down the beach, so I don't know if you get it down the beach. He's down at Salisbury. But anyway, it's ironic that I don't know, Cousin Bruce was always up in the air in that bucket. Always in that, he loved being up looking at the trees. His favorite spot was Redwoods. He used to go to Redwood, California every year.
All right.
His friends were here for the service, and he used to go every year, like right around Big Sur and Redwood City and the big redwood trees. He loved them, and it's funny that he was always in the bucket and he died up. He died in the he was
always up in the bucket and he died in the air.
Well, he came down to plane crash, and that was that.
Now, are you listening on Channel 22?
No, I'm not. I can't listen and talk to you.
Oh, okay. No, I meant, the reason I asked is because I would have loved to have shown some photographs tonight, but Channel 22 apparently had a hard drive failure.
Oh, they did?
We can show them on WHAV.tv, and maybe I'm going to hold this over till next week, but I thought you might find it interesting. We have some old photographs from the 1950 Haverhill High School yearbook. Al Brenner provided this to us. And I'll just read a little description before we go to weather. But according to the 1950 Haverhill High School yearbook, inaugurating a series of radio broadcasts by the Guidance Committee over WHAV, our high school recorded a program during chapel to be transcribed later. Well, actually, they didn't understand the technical term, but if they were recording it, they were transcribing it then. It's for broadcast later. It was perhaps as fascinating for those of us who spectated as for those who took part. A tour of the school really seemed in progress, even though we could only see the visitors every minute on the stage. And so we're going to show some photographs. And for some of you who might know these names, Mr. McCook, Mr. Harriman, and those are the names we have here.
How is Al?
He is lively on Facebook. I haven't seen him actually.
I don't know if he's in Haverhill.
I think he lives in Gerry now.
Gerry, I know. Yeah, somewhere. I haven't seen Al. At one time, he had a house over by the ski tow. He had the old silo in the yard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we used to do some. We used to bring firewood. That's right, over at Al's house. He said to me one day, "Woody, look why don't we trade houses?" I said, "I'd like to live up Crystal Lake, and you can live down by the ski tow."
All right.
Al was quite a guy.
He still is. So.
He's quite a guy. He was another one of those that into a lot of different things.
That's right.
Amazing guys like this Arthur Vesey. He's a historian.
That's right. Well, actually, both of them. Arthur Vesey, I'd like him on the air, and he has said at some point he will. And Al Brenner has said at some point he will.
That'd be nice. So I have a picture of myself and Arthur Vesey and Gigi Murray. We were in the choir down at UU Universalist Unitarian Church with all the girls around us.
Oh, you were in the choir at the UU Church?
Yeah, I was in the choir.
Wow, what do you know about that, Woody?
Yeah, I don't know, but I don't think I was too good of a singer. The cousin Bruce had a fantastic voice. Great voice he had.
Well, thank you for the prize, the hints, and the tribute to Bruce.
Well, if nobody gets it, we'll maybe give it away and come up with an easier one.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for letting me share.
Oh, no, that's great.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.
And, thanks for the updates on the NASCAR with Nate. Nate's quite a
Nathan
guy.
E. Webster III, no less.
I'd like to go see him up there, but I don't think I'm going up this week.
All right, yeah, he'll be up there. Well, maybe you guys can work it out.
All right.
All right, thanks. Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Good night. All right, we're going to take a brief break for weather from WHAV's own meteorological team. We'll be back with more of the Open Mic Show after that.
Open mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
It's 36.
WHAV is on Facebook. For quick access, visit whav.net and click on the Facebook icon.
Catch the wave!
Melinda's Garden Moments help gardeners create and maintain a healthy, beautiful garden with ease, inside or out, and all year long. This is Melinda Myers, inviting you to tune in every weekday morning, right here on WHAV. You'll learn creative ways to grow your own vegetables and herbs while beautifying your landscape. Eco-friendly lawn care, flower garden design basics, unique container gardens, attracting birds and butterflies to the landscape, and much more. Again, please join me weekday mornings for Melinda's Garden Moment for a very environmentally friendly approach to gardening. Remember, only local radio can bring you this feature opportunity, but only WHAV does.
Wave weather!
I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre with Wave Weather. We'll head through tonight with increasing clouds, especially late tonight. Maybe a couple of showers by daybreak, a low of 48. Quick moving cold front to bring us a few light showers in the morning. By the afternoon, clouds should break for at least a little bit of sun with a high of 67. It'll be clear and cool Tuesday night, low of 46. Sunshine for Wednesday with a high of 68. Sunshine for Thursday and 66. More sunshine Friday and 63. May turn a little warmer next weekend. I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre. Your next Wave Weather in 30 minutes.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
Welcome back to the Open Mic Show, a 50-year staple of democracy in the Merrimack Valley. This hour of the Open Mic Show is being brought to you by the Merrimack Valley Economic Development Council. Smart companies choose the Merrimack Valley. Those of you who are watching, and those of you who are listening will know in a second, but those of you who are watching will see there's someone next to me, and it's Dan Kennedy, professor of journalism. Professor or associate?
Associate.
I'm sorry to be so accurate, but of course when I have a media critic here, I have to be very careful. Associate Professor of Journalism, Northeastern University, but many of you know him from Beat the Press on WGBH Television Channel 2. And Dan has written quite a bit about the so-called news desert in Haverhill. And when we first started talking, WHAV wasn't doing quite as much news as it's doing now, and since then even the Eagle Tribune has put up a paywall, which of course we somewhat sheepishly, I'll admit, took advantage of with our slogan, the only Haverhill-based news source, always free. And Dan, being a critic of the media, I've kind of pushed him into coming on the program since he was here anyway. Maybe you can tell us what you're up to. What brings you here?
Well,
Or is it a big secret?
Excuse me. No, it's not a big secret at all. I'm doing a couple of interviews today. One of them will be with you after we get off the air. I'm doing video interviews for a 5 or 6 minute video I'm making on sort of new developments in hyperlocal journalism. And although it will be published, it will be on YouTube at some point. I'm largely doing it for educational purposes. I want to show my class how to make a simple web video. And my theory is, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Ah, very good, very good. So also, many of you who attended, or at least were aware of, WHAV's fundraiser last year, Corporate FM, the killing of local commercial radio. Dan Kennedy was graciously allowed himself to be on that panel. And you know what? As a favor to him, because no one gets paid around here. So as a favor to Dan, why don't you tell us about your latest book, or I think it's the latest one, The Wired City?
Oh, okay, sure, absolutely. Well, it's been out for about a year now, and The Wired City is about a new wave of online-only community news sites. The principal one being the New Haven Independent, which is a terrific nonprofit site supported by grants, donations, some underwriting by local institutions in the community. And they have, it's a wavering number, but they currently have 2.5 people covering the city, and they should soon be back up to 3.5. And there are some for-profit projects in the book as well, such as the Batavian in Western New York. And I actually closed the book with a discussion of what may be coming in Haverhill. And I have to say, when I was writing that several years ago, it looked like it might be right around the corner. And here we are in late 2014, and it still looks like it might be right around the corner.
You're referring to Haverhill Matters.
I'm referring to Haverhill Matters, and it's a great idea. I know there are a lot of people who work very hard on it. They have experienced some setbacks, but I'm hoping late this year or early next year will kind of be the key for them.
Listeners, if you're not overly familiar, you may recall that a guest on this program was Tom Stites of the Banyan Project. And what Tom has proposed, and maybe I'll just give you some quick background, Tom went looking for a community. Tom's from Newburyport now. He went looking for a community that had what he called a news desert. Now, Haverhill once had a major daily, the Haverhill Gazette, had competition over the years, but now there's actually, other than WHAV, no news organization actually based in Haverhill. City of 60,000 plus people. So Tom Stites went looking for a community that might be interested in hosting a cooperatively owned news organization. Now, cooperatively owned like a credit union, owned by the members or their shareholders. And that's a concept he's had some trouble getting across. It really is very simple. It's cooperatively owned by what I guess would be shareholders. And there's even the potential that you could get a dividend back, just as there is with your local credit union. And Haverhill Matters has slowly put some pieces up on the web, and it would be the pilot group. Tom Stites looked at both Lynn and Haverhill and decided to promote his project here in Haverhill. WHAV endorsed the project early on, frankly, for somewhat selfish reasons. If WHAV could carry some of Haverhill Matters news, like a wire service, Associated Press, for example, then it would benefit listeners as well. WHAV waited as long as it could and decided to move forward with its own expanded news program. More background than anybody ever wanted, probably.
I don't know. I think it's interesting.
Okay. Well, you're a news junkie of sorts.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, you spent a good deal of your career actually as a journalist, is that right?
Yes.
You were at the Boston Phoenix?
Well, I spent the first 10 years of my career at the Woburn Daily Times, for those of you who know that area.
Oh, the nuts and bolts journalism.
And absolutely. And I got to cover the federal trial that became the movie and the book of Civil Action.
Oh, right.
Wonderful book, not a very good movie.
W.R. Grace?
W.R. Grace, Beatrice Foods, the Riley Tannery. And, I mean, for your listeners who may not remember that story, because it took place, 20 years ago now, 30 years ago, it involved contaminated drinking water and allegations that the unusually high childhood leukemia rate in the part of Woburn that was served by that water was due to the water. And the trial ended inconclusively, not very well for the families who were involved. But it was a tragic story and kind of a cautionary tale about what happens when you don't take care of the environment. And then you're right. After that, I was at the Boston Phoenix for 14 years, most of the time as the Phoenix's media columnist.
Okay. Actually, we have to take a brief break, but let me just kind of tease if I can keep Dan in this chair for a little longer.
I've got no place to go.
Tease. Those W.R. Grace stories had quite an impact on Haverhill. And I'll refresh your memories right after this brief break where we're going to hear Take Two movie review. We'll be right back.
Open mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
Phil Christie here. Those Boston stations don't always understand weather in the Merrimack Valley. Stay informed with WAVE weather every 30 minutes, 24 hours a day on Soft Gold, WHAV.
Smart companies choose the Merrimack Valley. They're attracted by the region's technology and innovation, housing and education, workforce, arts, culture, and recreation, and convenient location and easy access. Learn more and look at profiles of all 24 cities and towns at the Merrimack Valley Economic Development Council website at merrimackvalley.info.
Catch the wave!
This is Tom Hartman inviting you to tune in the Tom Hartman program on WHAV every weekday beginning at 3. I'll be here 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, taking your calls live. We'll tackle critical issues that impact working people at home, on the job, and throughout society. The Tom Hartman program is your media support group for We the People. Again, please join me weekdays beginning at 3 right here on WHAV. Remember, only local radio can bring you this progressive talk opportunity, but only WHAV does.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, a fast-paced spy thriller with lots of twists and turns. November Man may be a paint-by-numbers action movie, but that doesn't mean it isn't enjoyable. Starring Pierce Brosnan as retired CIA operative Peter Devereaux, who is lured out of retirement for a highly personal mission, he soon finds himself in the middle of an increasingly messy situation where he can trust no one and must protect the only witness who can bring down a would-be Russian president with far more skeletons in his closet than even his real-life contemporary Vladimir Putin. If all this sounds like a lot, it is. However, the plot is easy enough to follow, and it moves at a very fast pace. Credit must go to the writers and editors for never dragging or wasting time on extraneous information that doesn't have much to do with the main storyline. With that said, though, one of the criticisms of November Man is that it is very much the Pierce Brosnan show. While Brosnan does a fine enough job and shows that he can still pull off the action hero roles, it does come as an expense to the other characters. For example, Devereaux's former protege turned enemy, David Mason, played convincingly by Luke Bracey, is never fleshed out enough to become a character that the audience is actually concerned about. With that said, November Man is a good film for those who want an entertaining thriller that touches a little bit on contemporary issues without being too heavy-handed or requiring research on current world events beforehand. It may not be the type of film to win any awards or be remembered a year from now, but it's still worth viewing. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Take2_review.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
Welcome back to the Open Mic Show. My guest, who was somewhat surprised maybe to be my guest, because he was actually doing some videotaping for something he's working on, is Dan Kennedy, Associate Professor of Journalism at Northeastern University. And Dan mentioned he got his start, I don't know if it was his start, but he worked in Woburn covering some big environmental issues that involved W.R. Grace and others. And Gerry McCall, WHAV's environmental consultant, just couldn't resist, I bet, and he's on the phone. Gerry, how are you?
Good evening. How are you?
Very good, Gerry.
And good evening to Mr. Kennedy also.
Good evening, Gerry.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
It's been a long time, hasn't it?
It really has.
If you, I'm sure that you know that I'm on page 36. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't write that book. I wish I had. It was a great book.
It took 10 years to write it. Jonathan Hart. It took him 10 years to write it, and we went to a book review in Newburyport, and basically after the report, I talked to him a little, and also, what's his name, the attorney, and
Jan Schlickman.
Yeah. And they signed my book, and on Jonathan Hart said on it, you started the truth seeking. That's what he put on my book. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's terrific.
Since that time, finally EPA is always kind of slow in getting studies and things like that, and basically they conducted a study which showed that the bulk of the contamination came from the area of Riley's Tannery at Beatrice Food.
Yes.
And remember that the Beatrice Food had a very fine attorney. In fact, just until recently, he was still practicing law.
I know. He must be quite elderly at this point.
He was in his 80s.
You're talking about Gerry Fasher, and you're right. He was an absolutely tremendous lawyer.
Yeah. And I agree with you. The movie wasn't what you call a great movie, because I didn't think what's his name was a good casting.
John Travolta, yeah.
No, I didn't think he was a good casting. Robert Duvall, I thought he might get nominated because he played a tremendous part in there. And in fact, I know you've seen the movie.
Gerry,
there was a scene there where they're sitting outside, and Duvall says, he showed him a number, settlement number, and he said, "What if I put, what was he say? What if I put 3 zeros in front of this?"
Yeah.
And anyway,
hey, Gerry, when you were at DEP, did you work on that project at all?
I was the one who shut the wells down.
Okay, you were the one that shut the wells down there. Okay.
And I did. Basically, what happened was we had heard that there was the MBTA was clearing a site to put in a new railroad station, and they came upon barrels of materials, And my assistant who went out to do the survey and investigation said, he found the barrels, but the material was not trichloroethylene and trichloroethane. And I said, well, gee, I think we better go downstream, down gradient, and collect some samples from wells G and H. And so we did, and he came back, and the numbers were horrendous. And basically, in my feeling, based on all the hours that I spent on this project, in fact, one particular thing was I contacted. We had a PhD in our Boston office who was kind of like a toxicologist, and even though trichloroethylene and trichloroethane were not EPA standards for drinking water at the time, she advised me to shut the wells down, primarily because Woburn had another source of water supply. They had the at that time it was called MDC, now it's called the MWRA. And so I called Tom Vernon, who was a city engineer who's passed since that time, and who incidentally died of leukemia, and he did live in that area. I called him and I says, I'm coming over to see you, and I have a cease and and I want you to shut the wells down, wells G and H. And he said, well, you'll have to send me you'll have to issue an order. So I talked to my secretary and drafted the letter, and I signed it, and I called him. I says, how long are you going to be there? He says, well, I'll be here until 5 o'clock. So I drove over there, hand-delivered it to him, and the wells were taken offline. And later on, Mayor Rabbit said that those wells would never be used again. He commissioned one of the bulldozers on in the department, and they demolished wells G and H. So there is no wells G and H.
Oh, really?
So in the picture, they've actually they took photos of another well site, not a polluted one.
Yeah, the judge wasn't too happy about that.
No.
Because he wanted the jurors to be able to see whether it was possible to see the G&H well houses from the Riley property.
Yeah.
But they'd already been knocked down.
You know what? Actually, this hydrogeo study shows. Basically, what it shows is there is an aquitide between, and an aquitide is almost like if you're pumping water through a pipe. It's very, very large aggregate gravel with very good, big pore size, and that's it's not circular. It's just a geological formation, and basically EPA's study shows that there was an actual aquitide between Riley's site, incidentally, who used trichloroethylene and trichloroethane in his tannery process, and between his site and wells G&H. So I really feel that the bulk of the contamination was coming from Riley's tannery, who was owned by Petrus Foods at the time.
That's right.
And W.R. Grace, they had buried barrels in their backyard, but it looks to me like the distance from their facility to wells G&H, which their facility is down grading in quite a distance on the Abba-Jonah River, and that would be a momentous pumping process to get contamination from their site up to wells G&H. So
this is maybe a reunion of sorts for you guys.
Absolutely. Gerry, I don't know if you remember, but during the trial, the family's lawyer, Jan Schlickman, hired a hydrogeologist to be their expert witness, George Pinder, and Dr. Pinder did such a poor job of making the argument that contaminants at the Riley tannery would flow into the wells, that's really what caused the case to really fall apart for the families.
Yeah, and there was another thing that came up, Mr. Kennedy. Basically, during this particular process, I sent one of my assistants over to Riley's tannery to see. I knew that he was using trichloroethylene and trichloroethane in the tanning process of leather. He tanned leather,
Yep.
And I knew that he was using the materials So I sent and I knew that he had 3 what they call process wells on his site. In other words, these wells supposedly were not connected to the public water supply. And so I sent one of my associates over there. I'm not going to tell you his name, but he's retired and he's still living. And he went over there and visited, and there was actually a cross connection between the public water supply in that area, in the area where the leukemia cases were, and the public water supply.
Wow. And now it can be told.
And, you know, so there is a question of whether, you know, actually it was a direct shot from, you know, Riley's tannery.
That's incredible. I had never heard that before.
He's passed, yeah. He's passed. I tried to get in touch with a few of the, you know, the people who suffered, and I was able to get in touch of what's her name? She was kind of led the charge.
Oh, Ann Anderson.
Yes, Ann Anderson, and the other person that I contacted was the pastor from the church,
Bruce Young.
Yeah, a year ago or so, I called him and we talked, and then I did talk to Ann Anderson, but those are the only 2 ones that I was able to contact. You know? And you know, so you know, it was a kind of exciting situation. One funny thing that used to happen, though, the girls in my office used to say, "Gerry, will you take us into Boston?" Because they were doing a lot of filming in Boston. Will you take us into Boston because we want to meet John Travolta?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, more.
But because I was a public figure, you know, public figures don't get any remuneration or anything like that for using your name. So, did they ask you for permission to use your name?
They didn't use my name.
Oh, they didn't. No, I thought they did. Yeah.
Gerry, we
I'll
have
to go through my book again.
Okay, we have to go to news, Gerry, but thank you very much, and I'm glad this all came together tonight, so you two could compare some notes.
It's nice to talk to Mr. Kennedy, and you know he has an awful lot of knowledge about the situation, and you know those were exciting times, and I'm glad that I shut those wells. Well, I was a regional engineer at the time, and nobody does anything DEP without the commissioner. So actually, I had to get permission first, and then to shut those wells, to take those wells offline.
Well, Dan might have had a better story if the commissioner had refused and you did it on your own.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right. I'm glad that I did it. I'm glad that I drafted that letter, and unfortunately, Tom Vernon died of leukemia, and he was from that area where contamination was so significant in the drinking water. Thank you very much, both of you. I really appreciate it. It brings back some memories that were good. You know, I did a good job.
You did do a good job. Boy, thank you for calling, Gerry. That is so interesting.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gerry.
Bye-bye.
All right, Gerry from Methuen, WHAV's volunteer, I might add, environmental consultant, and it never even made the connection, so I'm glad that came together well. All right, we're going to have to take a break for news. Dan, thank you very much for being forced to join us as part of your assignment, but thank you so much. We'll be back with more of the Open Mic Show after national news from FSN, local news with WHAV's own news director, Dana Esmore, local weather from local meteorologists, and Nate Webster's NASCAR race recap. All goes by fast, so please stay with us.
Open Mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
It's 8:04.
WHAV Merrimack Valley. WHAV is a not-for-profit service of Public Media of New England Incorporated. It's heard on 1640 AM, the web, at whav.net, and participating cable television stations.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Rebecca Foster. International diplomats in Paris have pledged their full support to eradicate the threat of Islamic State militants in Iraq and Syria. A joint statement by a group of 30 countries says that could include military assistance. Foreign leaders promised to fight ISIS using all means necessary. Meanwhile, the Obama administration is putting pressure on Congress to approve funding to train and arm Syrian rebels. White House spokesman Josh Earnest said the U.S. wants to get the rebels ready to take on ISIS.
The goal here is to ensure that we have, or that there is, a fighting force on the ground in Syria that can take the fight to ISIL in Syria. The president has ruled out the use of American combat troops for that purpose.
Around 500 migrants are believed to have drowned after a boating accident near Malta last week. The news is emerging now as 2 Palestinian survivors spoke about what they're describing as an intentional crash by other traffickers patrolling the seas. Our Europe correspondent Sandra Gatman reports.
Speaking to the International Organization for Migration, 2 survivors say their boat, which departed Egypt last week, was sunk by a vessel belonging to other traffickers. The Palestinians say a confrontation occurred when their fellow passengers refused to board a less safe boat. They were 2 of 9 survivors aboard the vessel carrying 500 Sudanese, Egyptian, Syrian, and Palestinian migrants seeking asylum in Europe. The news comes as another boat carrying 250 people sank off the Libyan coast on Monday and adds to a total of more than 2,500 migrants who've lost their lives at sea so far this year. Sandra Gatman, Brussels.
The UK Prime Minister David Cameron is in Scotland as the final 72 hours of campaigning get underway ahead of the independence referendum on Thursday. Scotland's First Minister Alex Salmond has again criticized the scaremongering of the No campaign, while David Cameron delivers what he calls head and heart reasons to reject independence. Our correspondent Dan Whitehead is in the Scottish capital, Edinburgh.
No one expected the race to be this close, and both the Yes campaign and Better Together are throwing everything at these final 3 days of campaigning. Alex Salmond met with business leaders at Edinburgh Airport, describing the independence referendum as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Scotland to create an economic and jobs policy for Scotland's needs. But David Cameron is also in Scotland to put forward his arguments against independence, saying there would be no way back if Scots vote to leave. Both sides will be working 24/7 to secure votes from the many still undecided. Dan Whitehead, Edinburgh.
For the rest of the day's stories, you can follow us on Twitter at Feature Story. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Here's what's happening in local news. A proposed 90-unit congregate care housing complex off North Avenue is expected to go to a public hearing later this fall before the Haverhill City Council. On Tuesday, the council will be asked to schedule a public hearing on November 18 for a petition by Continental Wingate Development Company. The developer is seeking a special permit to construct a 2-story building to house 46 assisted living units, 20 supportive independent living units, and 24 memory care units. The proposed congregate care complex would be located on a portion of an approximately 8-acre lot off North Avenue owned by the McGurr Family Trust. The Haverhill City Council meets at 7 p.m. Tuesday in the council chambers at Haverhill City Hall. Team Haverhill will conduct shoe sculpture installations Thursday in preparation for its upcoming Shoe Liberation exhibition event. Shoes crafted by local artists that double as benches will be installed at 7 Haverhill locations, including Pentucket Bank Stadium Branch, South Main Street at Greenleaf Street, Northern Essex Community College Haverhill Campus, Riverwalk, Community Actions Fox Center, and Bradford Square. Details on the theme of each shoe sculpture can be found at www.whav.net. Tour maps are available at Positive Images Gallery, the City Hall Exhibit, Buttonwoods Museum, and Haverhill Farmers Market. A Haverhill man faces drug possession charges following his arrest by Haverhill police on Friday. Police report 24-year-old Cartagena Early of Haverhill was charged with possession of Class B and Class E substances. The arrest occurred shortly before noon Friday at Beacon and Central Streets. An investigation is ongoing. In sports, WHAV's Nate Webster has this week's NASCAR race recap.
Chase race number 1 is in the books, and Brad Keselowski picks up his 5th win of 2014 and the first win for Ford at Chicagoland Speedway. Keselowski says he saw a hole and went for it and was happy about the way things turned out.
Well, I guess you couldn't ask for a better way to start the chase, maybe other than starting up front. Just phenomenal with the way the things played out. I don't know if we were the fastest car. We just fought and climbed and clawed. And, I just saw a hole and I went for it. I didn't know if my car would stick or not, but I knew I would regret it if I didn't try it. So I tried it, and it did.
The 41 of Kurt Busch spins trying to enter pit road. He gets a commitment line violation after taking out the orange cone. Casey Kane gets nabbed twice for speeding coming into pit road. Other pit road problems plagued drivers like Matt Kenseth, Justin Allgaier, who stalled out in the middle of pit road, and the 18 of Kyle Busch overshooting his pit box. The 43 of Alric Almirola was having a great run with Richard Petty Motorsports, running in 6th, but he blew up on lap 231. Next week, yours truly will be at the Magic Mile, New Hampshire Motor Speedway, for the Sylvania 300. I'll be tweeting live all day. Follow me at Nate WHAV. For race recap, Nate Webster, WHAV Sports.
Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source, and it's always free. In the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, this is Dana Esmel.
Wave weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre with Wave Weather. We'll head through tonight with increasing clouds, especially late tonight. Maybe a couple of showers by daybreak, a low of 48. Quick moving cold front to bring us a few light showers in the morning. By the afternoon, clouds should break for at least a little bit of sun with a high of 67. It'll be clear and cool Tuesday night, low of 46. Sunshine for Wednesday with a high of 68. Sunshine for Thursday and 66. More sunshine Friday and 63. May turn a little warmer next weekend. I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre. Your next Wave Weather in 30 minutes.
Phil Christie here. Last year, WHAV helped local nonprofits by airing 8,780 community spotlight messages. Only local radio can bring you this level of public service, but only WHAV does.
WHAV, Merrimack Valley, open mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
Welcome back to the Open Mic Show. I'm Tim Coco. Nathan E. Webster III is in master control, and to my left, Dan Kennedy, associate professor. It was associate, right? I keep doing that. Associate professor of journalism at Northeastern University, former writer for, what was the first one, Woburn Times?
The Woburn Daily Times Chronicle, actually, to be
Woburn
technical.
Daily Times Chronicle, and later at the Phoenix. Now also seen on Channel 2's Beat the Press segment. It's still part of Emily Rooney, or has she gone on?
No, she'll continue. She's stepping down from the Monday to Thursday Greater Boston show in January, but she'll continue to do Beat the Presses as long as she wants.
All right. And shall we beat the press? Okay.
Always.
All right. So in any event, Dan's going to stay in studio. He'll comment as he sees fit. We may push him a little bit on this, but let me bring you up to date on a few things, listeners. My story appeared yesterday on the WHAV Wavelengths newsletter, and I referenced Greg Cronin, F. Gregory Cronin. And I did this with great trepidation. Actually, Saturday is when the story came out, because I hadn't been able to reach him in some time. And knowing that he was 90 years old, I feared the worst. And as it turned out, I was able to confirm only after publication, and you know how that is Right?
Absolutely.
Only after publication that he had in fact passed away. But many of you in Haverhill may well remember Greg Cronin, not for some of his behind-the-scenes engineering work putting WHAV-FM on the air in 1948, but you may remember that he worked for Mario's Radio TV, which at the time was Mario's radio service on River Street. I think that was there, at least until my memory anyway. It was still there. He also owned Haverhill Telephone Answering Service, and he described the location as being across the street from the Mitchell's department store. Now, if anyone looks across the street from what is now the Landmark building, you'll see that everything on that block is gone thanks to urban renewal. So I think we have a memorial slide, Nate, just so folks can see one of his last photographs. Did I put it in there? It might be in the TV folder. But F. Gregory Cronin, I guess F is for Frank, and he played a very large role in putting WHAV-FM on the air. And interestingly, he served in World War II in the 3104 Signal Service Battalion, and that was the battalion that handled communications for the Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force under Dwight Eisenhower. You know, it's always interesting that these local people who did very big things and often aren't recognized for them. But he did tell us he worked for Mario's radio TV show for about $40 a week until 1955. He did some work for WHAV mostly as a volunteer, but because Mario's radio TV shop would sell FM radios, which no one had in 1948, the Haverhill Gazette that owned WHAV at the time thought he'd be a key player. And in our next installment of Wavelengths, we're going to talk about how he helped prepare audiences for FM radio. It was called FM Forum. But maybe some of you have memories of Greg Cronin or Haverhill Answering Service. Did you find that photo? It's on? Okay, I get a delay on my side. All right, so you might remember him. Feel free to call 978-374-1900. Also, just a reminder about some of those prizes we still have left over. If you would like to visit the John Greenleaf Whittier birthplace, free of charge, just ask. No trivia questions to answer, no hoops to jump through. Just call 978-374-1900 and you'll receive free admission to the John Greenleaf Whittier Birthplace Museum. Also, for a $10 gift certificate to Kimball Tavern Antiques, corner of Salem and South Main Streets on the Bradford side of the city, answer this question. What is the name of the oldest bowling league in Haverhill? What is the name of the oldest bowling league in Haverhill? Now, Woody gave us a couple of clues. The name has something to do with cooking and something to do with being warm. I would think cooking and warm go together, but you see the answer? Don't yell it out.
Oh, okay.
All right. He sort of gave another clue, which was that the group played all the way back at City Lanes in the 1940s, another building. Actually, that building might still exist. I think that's coming down in the latest round of demolition. But we're going to take a brief break for Community Spotlight. Please stay tuned.
Open mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
Are you listening to WHAV on cable television? If so, join WHAV in thanking the board, staff, and members of your local public access channel.
Open mic!
Every Monday night, the Open Mic Show brings interesting guests into your homes, presents your take on current events, and dabbles in little-known local history. I'm Tim Coco, your host, inviting you to join the chorus of community voices beginning at 6:30 Monday nights right here on WHAV. You may also watch this 50-year staple of democracy live at WHAV.tv and Haverhill Community Television Channel 22. The Open Mic Show is brought to you by Northern Essex Community College, the Merrimack Valley Economic Development Council, and WHAV members. Remember, only local radio can bring you this talk opportunity, but only WHAV does. Community Spotlight is brought to you by Haverhill Bank. Haverhill Bank is a generous supporter of the area's civic and cultural programs.
All it takes is just one bank. Haverhill Bank. Community Spotlight.
Team Haverhill's Shoe Liberation Artist Show takes place Wednesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Sunday, 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. until September 27th at the Buttonwoods Museum, 240 Water Street, Haverhill. Artists include Mark Mannheimer, David Jones, Elizabeth Persing, and others. The show features the work of award-winning regional artists as well as emerging talent and includes a display of the original design maquettes for this year's shoe sculptures. For more information, visit haverhillhistory.org. Someone you know is on WHAV. To submit or read your own nonprofit announcements, click on the Contact tab at whav.net or email news@whav.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, this is Martha Melendez.
WHAV. Open mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
Welcome back to the Open Mic Show. This hour of the Open Mic Show being brought to you by the Merrimack Valley Economic Development Council. Smart companies choose the Merrimack Valley. And I invite you once again to check out their website, merrimackvalley.info. Now, even if you're not an entrepreneur, or you don't own a company, or you're not looking to relocate a company, there's a great list called Merrimack Valley Happenings, updated every week with just about every local event you can think of and most that you can't think of. So it's a nice guide to what to do in the Merrimack Valley. All right. Again, we're going to take birthdays and anniversaries for October. You've got 9 minutes to call in, put the name in the hat. Birthdays or anniversaries for October. Nominate yourself if you must. Last month, Nate can tell me if I'm wrong, we had what? More than a dozen entries, right? So the odds are still better than the lottery to win a free cake from LBD's Second Generation Italian Bakery, 140 South Main Street in Haverhill, Bradford side. You know, so I don't know if you heard me when you were coming in, but you know, more than 100 years after Haverhill so-called annexed Bradford, which I jokingly called the Great War, we still don't know what to call it. You know, people who live on the south side of the river say it's Bradford. People who live on the north side of the river say it's the Bradford District of Haverhill. I think legally it is the Bradford District of Haverhill, but we might actually have a Great War if we push it.
It'll be like Scotland.
Yeah. Hey, there's an idea. Hey, you could inspire this. You know, Scotland's trying to decide whether it should stay in the United Kingdom.
Let's have some haggis.
Yeah, why don't we be troublemakers here, and let's see if we can get some people to go canvassing on Kingsbury Avenue to see whether Bradford should remain in its union with Haverhill. Now, the good news is Bradford gets to keep the sewer plant. Haverhill has the water, so I don't know how we work that one out. I get a little punchy by the end of these shows. Tom Bergeron once commented when he had to fill in for the Open Mic Show many years ago, and he didn't receive a single call. and he said he was down to reading his clothing labels for content. So he always had a great way of talking about things. All right. Speaking of content, Nate, I think we have a slide for this. We have the Rat Pack. The Rat Pack is back at Northern Essex Community College's signature event. Matter of fact, it's the 10th annual signature event. And let me read their description. The music and field of old Las Vegas comes to the Merrimack Valley this fall, Saturday, September 20th. That's this Saturday. Relive the days of the Rat Pack with The Rat Pack is Back, a touring tribute version of Las Vegas's famous entertainers, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin, and Joey Bishop. All right, now, those of you who are interested in this, listen carefully. Tickets are $39, and this will take place at Collins Center for the Performing Arts, otherwise known as Andover High School, and you can still get your tickets. Call Northern Essex Community College at 556-3870. Okay, I'll do it complete. 978-556-3870. You can also learn more online at necc.mass.edu. I will be going, and I'm on one of the Northern Essex boards, but that's actually not why I'm going. A friend of mine who's on even a more important board had to buy more tickets than I did, and he wanted me to go. So that's how it works. But, last year they had Keith Lockhart, and I think, I don't know if I should say this, but I guess I will. I've started saying it. When you hear Keith Lockhart, you assume that you're going to be going to a musical extravaganza. And I think he was trying out something new since it's a benefit event. And he was doing storytelling with some musical sound effects. How do I say this? I think most people were disappointed. But anyhow, so much for that. All right, 5 minutes before the end of the program. Our birthdays and anniversaries for October, call 978-374-1900. We do these trivia questions all the time, and I don't know if you heard this one, but we finally had to give the answer because it's gone on too long. But Rob Zombie is a famous Haverhite.
Oh, okay.
And he grew up in Haverhill, and in a Rolling Stone interview said he was absolutely bored to death living in Haverhill, especially as they were tearing down all the buildings downtown. So he had to play football in an unusual location. This was a trivia question for more than a month. No one got it, so we finally gave it away tonight. He played football at Elmwood Cemetery. Trivia you didn't need to know, is that right? All right. We do have a call somewhere. Nate's taking down some information, so I think it'll be a contestant. And then next week, maybe we'll have a picture back on Haverhill Community Television, and we'll show you these photographs that Al Brenner provided from the 1950 Haverhill High School yearbook of a program over WHAV presented by the Guidance Committee. I think that might go over just as well. But any event, it was a virtual tour of the school, and I found it interesting mainly because I got to see some of WHAV's road equipment of the time. You're on the Open Mic Show.
Yes, that's right. I'm opening and I'm closing tonight.
Oh, David Goudswood, Open Mic Show historian.
I forgot my little baby brother's birthday is October.
Oh, your brother's birthday is in October.
October 14.
Scott, okay.
Yes.
Scott, I guess we've given out your name. We don't normally give out recipient's name, but since we've given out yours, he's Scott Goudswood.
That's correct.
Grew up on Lake Street, so what do you...
Well, he eventually will grow up.
Oh, he'll eventually grow up. All right. Well, David, let me virtually introduce you to Dan Kennedy. David is also an author. I don't think that you two will compete in the same genres.
Yeah, I think that's safe, yeah.
David just written Horror Guide to Massachusetts.
Oh, that sounds really cool. I live in Danvers, where all the witches were from.
Up on Hawthorne Hill.
That's right, absolutely.
The asylum.
All right, and David has also written... help me out, David. The Mystery Hill book, whose name escapes me. Maybe it was the Mystery Hill book.
Tim, dude, I got 10 books out. You asked me to pull one out of thin air like that?
His book before this was H.P. Lovecraft in the Merrimack Valley. And David now lives in Florida, but is a Haverhill native. At least he lived here long enough for us to call him that.
But the Florida issue aside, Bradford seceding from Haverhill, it might work.
Oh, really? Now, what side of this would you be on?
Well, you have to, historian perspective only. The reason Bradford was annexed is because the Ward Hill population was so high, it outnumbered Bradford, and they wanted to be part of Haverhill to get the public water and the sidewalks, and the village of Bradford said no. So they said, okay, we're going to join Haverhill.
Oh, okay, so a segment of the town furthest from Haverhill wanted some water and outvoted the rest of the town that liked being...
Well, Ward Hill had that whole village, the church, the school, the houses, the factory, and, Bradford was a bunch of small villages surrounded by farms.
It's funny, the village sort of still exists, but thanks to 495 and the relocation of lots of our internal streets, you drive through and not even know there was one there.
Yeah, and, there's also more population in Bradford proper, if that's not an oxymoron. But
we like picking on people on this show. All right. Well, David Gauser, it looks like we're out of time then, but thanks for opening this show and closing it as well. I had heard...
the first claw I've ever showed.
Well, it's funny, just another little anecdote about Bradford. I thought, but maybe it was just part of the politicking of 1896, but that Bradford was under some state sanction for not providing enough public schools, and that when it became part of Haverhill, the former Bradford Town Hall became a school. So maybe there's something to that.
Well, that may also explain why Knipe had to put a school in. I mean, it was a self-contained village. I mean, the church, school, its own post office is still there, all 2 rooms of it.
That's right.
So
it's the most convenient post office.
Yeah, if you can remember where it is. Some of us have
That's
been away a
why.
while.
That's why. There's no one ever there. But they own the building, I guess. So that's why it wasn't one of the ones that were closed. All right, David. Thank you so much.
Good talking to you. Nice to meet you, sir.
Thank you, David.
And talk to you next week.
Good to talk to you, too.
Take care. All right, that's going to wrap up the Open Mic Show. We'll be back next week, 6:30 Monday, with your calls and questions. Have a great week.
Open Mic!
Join Tim Coco live on the Open Mic again next Monday night at 6:30. The opinions expressed on the Open Mic Show are not necessarily those of WHAV, its underwriters, or affiliated stations. The Open Mic Show came to you from the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom.
It's 8:32.
Your donations enable WHAV to remain local and independent. Consider giving what you